Members, a quorum is present. Members, a quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. The day's prayer will be offered by our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papademos. Father Papademos.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, your invisible power has come and given light to our souls. As we go about our work today, help us to cast off the works of darkness and to put on the armor of light. Gather our scattered thoughts and purify our hearts, for you always grant forgiveness to those who ask. And so we pray, Lord, that you have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Thank you, Father, and welcome back. We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing and join us for the flag salute. Please join Assembly Member Wood as he leads us in the pledge. Mr. Wood.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. Honorable Richard S. Gordon, Assembly Member, 24th District Presiding. Chief Clerk E. Dotson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clerk Kathleen M. Lewis reading.
Mr. Holden moves. Ms. Waldron seconds. The reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the Governor. There are none. Messages from the Senate. There are none. Moving to motions and resolutions, the absences for the day. For legislative business, Assemblymember Chavez. For illness, Assemblywoman Campos. Moving to motions and resolutions. Mr. Holden, you are recognized for your motions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 118 and allow Assembly Members Bonta to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection, the request is granted.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 and allow Assemblymember Kim to speak on an adjourn in memory today.
Without objection, the request is granted.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62A, the file notice requirements, to allow the Human Services Committee to meet and to hear Assembly Bill 1405, Grove, upon adjournment of session on Thursday, April 30th, 2015, in room 437.
Without objection, the request is granted.
At the request of Ms. Waldron, please remove the following bills from consent. File item 171, AB 487, Gonzalez. File item 194, AB 1322, Daly.
Clerk will note.
At the request of the author, please remove the following bills from consent. File item 155, ACR 53, Dolly.
The clerk will also note.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Moving to business on the daily file. Second reading. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 726, 149, 1279, 333 with amendments, 708 with amendments, 757 with amendments, 170 with amendments, 253 with amendments, 383 with amendments, 847 with amendments, 861 with amendments, 724, 907 with amendments, 1534 with amendments, 502 with amendments, 859 with amendments, 1485 with amendments, 116 with amendments, 628, 445 with amendments, 30, 51, 216, 272, 461, 477, 594, 610, 666, 745, 832, 1043, 1045.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Moving to Assembly third reading. File items 111 through 113 pass and retain. Moving to file item 114. That's AB 258. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 258 by Assemblymember Levine and others, an act relating to organ transplants.
Mr. Levine, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 258 will save lives by ensuring medical cannabis patients are not discriminated against in the organ transplant process. For the past 19 years, California patients have had the legal ability to use cannabis for medical purposes. We estimate that there are at least 1,150 Californians that are at risk for being denied an organ transplant due to their cannabis use. Arcane public health policies view legal doctor-recommended medical cannabis patients as drug abusers, and that's just wrong. As a result, too often, patients are denied a life-saving organ transplant solely because they are prescribed medical cannabis. AB 258 will correct this wrong and is a common sense and compassionate measure that will protect legal cannabis patients who are in need of an organ transplant. 7 other states have already passed similar measures. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tie the vote. Ayes 52, noes 8. Measure passes. File item 115, pass and retain. File item 116, AB 644. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 644 by Assemblymember Wood, an act relating to land use.
Mr. Wood, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Currently, properties to be subdivided within a state responsibility area, or SRA, or very high fire hazard severity zone must undergo a finding process through the Subdivision Map Act. The finding process is intended to ensure that as land use changes, appropriate attention is given to fire prevention and protection. In rural areas, essentially most of my district, the options for providing fire protection are difficult, expensive, and sometimes unnecessary. Most subdivisions are developed upon the revenue from development can be used to pay for fire protection. If land remains open space and there are no new structures in need of fire protection, there is no new revenue to pay for it. Often families are forced to sell pieces of their land to developers, losing open space. AB 644 would allow owners of open space land to be exempt from the finding process as long as the land will remain open after the subdivision. If any structure is built on the land, it will no longer qualify for the exemption and must go back through the original finding process. AB 644 was passed out of the Local Government Committee. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Bloom, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question of the author?
Without objection.
Mr. Wood, I believe this is your first bill, and I want to say I've been over and over and over the language of this bill, and there seems to be no mechanism for enforcement. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, on my own time, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Bloom.
Members, this is a bill that has no teeth, and I recommend an extraction, a no vote. Thank you.
That was actually pretty good, Mr. Bloom. Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. There's a popular topic in my colleague's district. So does this bill also allow for new subdivisions for marijuana growers?
Without objection, you may answer the question.
I'm afraid not. There really are no subdivisions for medical marijuana growers at this point. So
as you're a dentist, may the floss be with you on this bill.
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to help the new dentist in the room. We hear this bill has no teeth, and then we're told that the recommendation is an extraction. Question of the author.
Without objection.
How can the dentist do an extraction if there are no teeth? So this is a good bill, right? Oh, let the record reflect he's speechless.
I may be speechless, but I am not toothless.
Seeing no further discussion or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tie the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 117, pass and retain. File item 118, AB 450. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 450 by Assemblymember McCarty, an act relating to greenhouse gases.
Mr. McCarty, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present AB 450, which would authorize cap-and-trade auction revenues for local property-assessed clean energy PACE programs. This dovetails the governor's ambitious goal of greatly increasing energy efficiency in California. We know that energy upgrades for property offers significant benefits. We can reduce the need for more emissions-producing power plants, tackling climate change, reduce ratepayers' utility bills, and create good-paying jobs. In fact, with these PACE projects, for every $1 million, we create 25 jobs. To date in California, we have $500 million in projects, but it could be greatly expanded with more coordination with cap-and-trade resources, helping lower interest rates and improve investor confidence in the program. PACE, in sum, is a win-win-win program and a wise candidate for cap-and-trade dollars. We have bipartisan support for this measure, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 71, no 0. Measure passes. File item 119, AB 675, for the purpose of amendments. Clerk will read with amendments.
Assembly Bill 675 with amendments by Assemblymember Alejo.
Mr. Alejo, you may open on the amendments.
Mr. Speaker and members, today I present amendments for AB 675. These amendments correct a drafting error that occurred during the initial iteration of the bill. They added back a code section dealing with an independent audit that was unintentionally left out. These amendments were agreed upon in the Assembly Judiciary Committee, where the bill received unanimous bipartisan support. I respectfully request the bill be put out to print and back on file.
Thank you, Mr. Alejo. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. Members, moving back to guest introductions. Mr. Williams, I believe you have guests with us in the Assembly today.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, members, we have a filmmaker from my district, from Ojai, California, Delaney Ellis, and Bob McFarland, who's president of the California State Grange. They're right up here in the gallery. Delaney is here today because she is taking her film around ground operations, battlefields to farm fields. It's an award-winning film that examines veterans in agriculture, focuses on community resources to assist veterans who want to participate in sustainable farming, ranching, and artisan food production. It's going to be also shown this afternoon for members and staff. Thank you for your time, and please welcome my guests.
Ms. Chang, I believe you have guests today. You're recognized from your desk.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, we have two of my local elected officials from the city of Chino Hills, Mayor Cynthia Moran and Councilmember Ray Marquez. Please welcome my guests. Thank you so much.
Okay, members, we are back on the file. File items 120 through 124, pass and retain. File item 125, AB 1146, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1146 by Assemblymember Jones, an act relating to recreational safety.
Mr. Jones, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, thank you very much. I am glad to present AB 1146, which addresses the current limitations on our city and county skate parks by broadening the definition of devices allowed in these parks to include all-wheeled, non-motorized devices such as scooters, bicycles, inline skates, roller skates, and non-motorized wheelchairs. AB 1146 will modernize the immunity for local governments to ensure a safe public space for riders of all wheeled, non-motorized devices. Giving our local governments immunity from liability in their parks promotes more rider safety and less damage to the community. This bill is sponsored by the County of San Diego and enjoys enthusiastic support from pro skater Tony Hawk and the Tony Hawk Foundation, riders of the Lakeside Skate Park in my district, and the cities of Encinitas, San Marcos, and the California Park and Recreation Society, just to name a few. There is no registered opposition, and the bill has passed Assembly Judiciary Committee with all members voting aye. I enthusiastically ask for your aye vote this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 126, AB 747. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 747 by Assemblymember Eggman, an act relating to land use.
Ms. Eggman, you may open.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a very small bill that your English teacher would love. We refer to this as a comma fix. AB 747 is a small planning and land use affecting only Sacramento-San Joaquin County. A bill intended to streamline a very small requirement of the 200-year flood control standard that applies solely to the Sacramento-San Joaquin Valley. This bill makes a small change to allow for issuing permits for upgrades, addition, rebuilds, and remodels that do not result in an increase in allowed occupancy on a given parcel without invoking the 200-year flood protection bill. This has been thoroughly vetted, and there's no current opposition, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Eggman. Seeing no discussion or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes. File items 127 and 128 pass and retain. Moving up to file item 129, that's AB 248. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 248 by Assemblymember Roger Hernandez and others, an act relating to health care coverage.
Mr. Hernandez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 248 protects workers from being offered on-the-job coverage below minimum value standards. This bill closes a federal loophole so that large employers that are held the same standard of health coverage as small employers and individuals. Some of these skinny plans do not cover doctor's visits, hospital stays, emergency rooms, prescription drugs, x-rays, hospice, or other preventative care. Some minimum plans mean that for these workers, getting sick means bankruptcy. A single emergency room visit can cost thousands of dollars. Please join me in supporting the spirit of Federal Affordable Care Act and protect everyone's access to affordable and comprehensive health coverage. This bill enjoyed bipartisan support, has minimal fiscal costs, is sponsored by Health Access California, and supported by Western Center on Law and Poverty and the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network and a large coalition of labor. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Seeing no discussion or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 49, noes 25. Measure passes. File item 130, AB 265. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 265 by Assemblymember Holden, an act relating to consumer protection.
Mr. Holden, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present Assembly Bill 265. Assembly Bill 265 is a consumer protection measure bill seeking to expand upon 2012 legislation regulating buy here, pay here car dealerships by requiring dealerships to wait 10 days after a payment due date before remotely disabling a vehicle. The existing law only provides 48 hours before a car is disabled, which has not provided enough time for someone to understand why a payment was late or to figure out how to find the money to make the payment. The bill has support from law enforcement, consumer, and industry groups and has received overwhelming bipartisan support in both policy and fiscal committees. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 72, no 0. Measure passes. File item 131 is passed and retained. File item 132, AB 559. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 559 by Assemblymember Lopez, an act relating to monarch butterflies.
Ms. Lopez, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I represent AB 559, which allowed the Department of Fish and Wild to make that necessary partnership with ensure the success of the conservation of the mottlefly. The mottlefly was experienced 90% population decline for the last 2 decades. Its food reservation is slowly behind wiping out away. This alarming trend, monarch butterflies are often seen as a symbol of ecological health, clear representation, and populations. Okay. The loss of monarch butterfly will have great consequence, not just the environment, but also to many tourists to come to see their great immigration. We must take an action in order to present that monarch butterfly now in the future generation. Thank you, members, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 51, no 16. Measure passes. File item 133, pass and retain. File item 134, AB 716. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 716 by Assemblymember Lowe, an act relating to the California State University.
Mr. Lowe, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members, Assembly Bill 716 will define the term supplant as it applies to the California State University system. This bill addresses an issue where non-matriculated students are forced to enroll in special sessions and pay added costs in order to meet their graduation requirement. By clarifying the definition of the word supplant, this will bring clarity into the code. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Glad to be recognized this time around. By our Mr.
I didn't
Speaker.
see you the first time. I'm sorry.
Anyways, for our new colleague from the Silicon Valley, this is your first bill. And you came up with some interesting slogans during your campaign. Is this one of those bills where we got to aim high but vote low?
Without objection, you may answer the question.
Mr. Speaker, my esteemed colleague, I can give the long answer or I can give the short answer.
You need some new material there. Think outside the box.
And
use your own mind.
I believe, as it relates to the bill at hand, speaking to the merits of it, as the House rules apply, the word supplant defines to the word replace, similarly to replacing immediately Mr. Alejo with maybe Miss Alejo in this body.
That would be a smart choice, though. I rest my case.
State your point of order, Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez, point well taken. Mr. Lowe, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 77, no 0. Measure passes. File item 135, pass and retain. File item 136, AB 526. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 526 by Assemblymember Holden, an act relating to abduction.
Mr. Holden, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 526 increases the penalty for abductions for the purposes of prostitution from $2,000 to $5,000. California Penal Code Section 267 has not been updated for more than 30 years. AB 526 updates this code section to closely match the dollar amount of the fine to the rate of inflation. AB 526 makes this code section relevant in today's legal atmosphere. I'd like to thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 77, no 0. Measure passes. File items 137 and 138 pass and retain. File item 139, ACR 40. Clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 40 by Assemblymember Calderon and relative to California Museum Month.
Mr. Calderon, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm presenting ACI 40, which declares May as California Museum Month. There are over 1,400 museums in California, which are spread all up and down our state in cities, towns, and rural communities. Museums bring many benefits to the people of California, including museums widely serve the public with programs which range from those for children to programs for older adults. Museums are trustworthy stewards of artifacts and facts. Museums are considered a more reliable source of historical information than books, teachers, or even personal accounts by relatives, according to one study. Museums are great educators. The typical museum devotes 3/4 of its education budget to K-12 students. Finally, museums are great economic partners contributing to the tourism economy. Studies show that visitors to cultural and historic sites stay 53% longer and spend 34% more money than other kinds of tourists. ACR 40 will declare May 2015 California Museum Month, and in doing so, California will recognize our museums as necessary and important contributors to the education, preservation, and culture of our state. I would like to request that the first roll be open for co-authors and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. See no discussion or debate. Mr. Calderon is asking the first roll be open for co-authors. The clerk will open the roll. Members, this is for co-authors on ACR 40. Co-authors, members. The clerk will close the roll. There are 74 co-authors added on ACR 40. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Members, moving back to guest introduction. Moving back to guest introduction, members, I am going to recognize Mr. Bonta from Mr. O'Donnell's desk. Mr. Bonta, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm honored today to have the opportunity to introduce and recognize students, faculty, administration, coaches, and seniors from Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland in my 18th Assembly District. This group has accomplished something unprecedented this year. A high school where the boys and girls basketball teams both won the state championships. Thank you. On the floor today, we have the two head coaches, Lou Ritchie, head coach of the boys team, and Malik McCord, head coach of the girls team, as well as the seniors of the boys and girls basketball teams. And up in the gallery, I'd like to introduce and recognize the assistant coaches of both teams and the freshman, sophomore, and junior players. I'm very proud of and very excited for all of you, both as the assembly member who represents your district and also as a Bishop O'Dowd parent myself. My daughter, Raina, is currently a sophomore at the school, and she sends her congratulations as well. Let's give them all a big round of applause for this great achievement. Great job, teams.
Members, if you could please direct your attention to Mr. Daly. Mr. Daly has some guests with us in the gallery today. Mr. Daly, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have Grand Oaks Elementary from Shasta County up in the gallery. We'd like to welcome them to this assembly. Thank you.
Okay, members, we are back on the file. Back on the file, members. File items 140 through 142, pass and retain. File item 143, AB 1528. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1528 by the Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife, an act relating to public resources.
Mr. Levine, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1528 is a Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee bill that makes technical code cleanup changes to update and correct the Public Resources Code and to remove obsolete provisions. This bill passed out of committee 14-0. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 72, no 0. Measure passes. File item 144, AB 1104. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1104 by Assemblymember Rodriguez and others, an act relating to search warrants.
Mr. Rodriguez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 1104 would clarify that a search warrant for controlled substances is already authorized in the Health and Safety Code by referencing such provision in Penal Code. AB 1104 would make a reference of such provision in Penal Code 1524, which is the statute that generally describes the situations in which search warrants may be issued. This bill has support on both sides. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes. File item 145, pass and retain. Moving to the consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read the second day consent calendar.
Assembly Bill 162 by Assemblymember Rodriguez and others, an act relating to state highways.
The clerk will open the roll on the second day consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 76, noes 0. The consent calendar is adopted. The clerk will read the remaining bills on the second day consent calendar.
Assembly Bill 166.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 222.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 223.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 231.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 294.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 301.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 315.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 331.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 389.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 417.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 434 with urgency.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 439.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 442.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 536.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 576.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 599.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 608.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 665.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 685.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 689.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 705.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 759.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 773.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 778.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 794.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 797.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 815.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 905.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 950.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 973.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1130.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1166.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1188.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1253.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1292.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1374.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1375.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1168.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 1475.
Ayes 76, no 0.
Assembly Bill 291.
Ayes 76, no 0.
And Assembly Bill 767.
Ayes 76, no 0. Members, if you can find your seats, we are now moving to announcements and adjournments in memory. Members, moving to adjournments in memory. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. Members, please take your seats.
Sorry.
Ms. Kim, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise today to ask that we adjourn in the memory of Ronald Herbert Porter, who recently passed away peacefully in his home at the age of 82. Ron was an amazing person with a great sense of humor and loved his family very much, especially his oldest daughter, Marie Royce, who is married to Congressman Ed Royce. I met Ron through Ed and Marie Royce, who I have known for over 2 decades. Ron had a lifelong positive attitude about life and was a role model to many who knew him. He had a great sense of humor and always had a way of inspiring people around him, including myself. Ron was born in North Dakota, grew up in Seattle, and eventually moved to Southern California. He graduated from Claremont Men's College in 1955 and served in the United States Army in Puerto Rico. When he returned from the service, Ron became a real estate broker and appraiser and was a successful business owner with several real estate offices throughout Southern California. Ron is survived by his wife, Barbara, and their children, Marie and Congressman Ed Royce of Fullerton, David and Samantha Porter of Anaheim Hills, Sheila and Daniel Taylor of Yorba Linda, and Sean Porter of Pomona, and 16 extended family members. Ron's funeral was yesterday, and I regret that I couldn't be there with them. So I humbly ask my colleagues to adjourn in the memory of Ronald Humbert Porter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Members, if I could have your attention for a few announcements. The following committees will meet upon adjournment: Aging and Long-Term Care in the Rules Committee room, Governmental Organization in room 4202, Human Services in room 437, Labor and Employment in room 447, and Privacy and Consumer Protection, room 126. Members, this is upon adjournment. Aging and Long-Term Care in the Rules Committee room, GO in room 4202, Human Services in 437, Labor and Employment in 447, Privacy and Consumer Protection in room 126. Members, on behalf of Assemblymember Williams, I'd like to announce the film Ground Operations, Battlefields to Farm Fields will be shown today at 1:30 p.m. in room 447. And our final announcement, I understand Assemblywoman Catherine Baker will be celebrating a birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Ms. Baker. Members, if you will indulge me, my guests have just arrived in the Assembly Gallery just in time. I would like to recognize up in the gallery the fourth grade classes of San Mateo Park Elementary School from my district, led by their teachers Lindsay Aegis, Jane Stein, and Catherine Waldeck, and a dedicated group of parent volunteers. The students have this rare opportunity to travel to Sacramento to see our state capitol and learn about the legislative process. Please welcome them to the Assembly today. Members, the session schedule is as follows. Friday, May 1st, no floor session, no check-in session. Monday, May 4th, floor session at noon. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. Our motion shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves, Ms. Waldron seconds, that this House stands adjourned until Monday, May 4th at noon. Quorum call is lifted.